Hey guys. So I figured it was time to talk about no longer being morbidly obese. And gosh, I feel like a lot of my emotions about it, they happened before it actually shifted. Because it's been happening for a while. And I've known it was coming and that kind of stuff. A lot of times with weight loss, you kind of process things before it happens because you approach things slowly over time. So when it came to this milestone, I knew that it was very meaningful on a lot of different levels. I have not been just obese probably since at least 5th or 6th grade. It's been a very long time that I was in morbid obesity. And if I'm honest, there was a lot of times before it finally happened where I would cry at the thought of it because for a long time it was very impossible seeming. It was something that I didn't think I would ever get to in my heart of hearts. It was something that I never knew I could actually do because for so much of the time that I was there, I was caught in that mindset of like, this is just impossible. Like, this is so hard. It's so difficult. It's never going to change. There's nothing I can do. It's way too much. I'll never be able to do it. I'm never going to be that disciplined, or I'm never going to have this, or I'm never going to have that. Like, you think about all these things of all these reasons why you can't. Basically, and you just kind of, it has really broken my brain to see how something I so deeply believed was not possible for so many years is actually occurring at this very moment. And I think for me, that is it's such a relief. It's just like, gosh, I don't think I've ever been so happy to be wrong in my life. Which I know is really extra to say, but that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm just like, gosh, I cannot believe how wrong I was. And thank God I was that wrong in the past, Morbid obesity, there was a lot of triggers in it. There was a lot of psychological issues in it. A lot of times it felt like walking on water. It felt like, I remember one time somebody commented and they're like, do you mean treading water? And I'm like, no, I mean walking on water. Like, it feels kind of miraculous in a way because it's so, when you're super morbidly obese for such a long time and you're slowly making your way across that morbid stage, it just feels like you're walking on water. I feel like now being obese, it's not going to be like that anymore. Like, I feel like it's more blasé or more normal. It's like, yeah, of course. It's like when you think of being obese, you think, yeah, there's so many people who go from being obese to being thin. It just doesn't seem like that much of a leap. But because of that, I think in a weight loss journey, I think morbid obesity is very pivotal. It's a very important step. There's a lot of decisions you have to make and a lot of things that you have to swear that you're never going to do again to get through. I think on both a physical and psychological level, my mind opened up. Different processes occurred where I could think, I could have more, I guess, nonlinear thinking, or I could think more outside of the box throughout this stage. And it required it because when you're coming from a bigger size, there is a feeling of being behind, and there's a feeling of I couldn't do these things before, or I wasted my time before. Like, there's that feeling of loss or sometimes grief, which I felt that more before I was Mo, to be honest. But those themes kind of carried through. into morbid obesity. And it was a lot of like, okay, this has never happened before, but we're going with it. It required a lot of quick thinking, and it required a lot of thinking of new ways of handling situations, thinking of new possibilities, thinking of new things that at times were very overwhelming to me, socially, fiscally, physically, all of it, you know? It was difficult in that sense. And I found that without the fear of imminent death of supermorbid obesity, it was a bit challenging to deal with my toxic ritualistic past, or I guess I can just say on here, it was more difficult to deal with my ED past. And because without the fear of death, you have to deal with the actual temptations or the reasons why. And I felt like throughout so much of morbid obesity, I could see this is why I never lost the weight. This is why I never lost the weight. This is why I never lost the weight. Over and over and over again. And you kind of have to just both doze through every single one of those mental blocks and mental walls to continue. I think, in my opinion, morbid obesity, for me, it was so incredibly mental. It was very mentally difficult, whereas supermorbid obesity was very physically difficult, which I did talk about when I left supermorbid. It was very meaningful to me in a physical sense. I think for me, leaving morbid obesity, it means more to me in a mental sense. I feel like I'm leaving morbid obesity with a stronger sense of reality and realism and, dare I say, balance mentally. It's not perfect. We'll get into where I'm at now, but it's so much better than it was when I got into this. I think my mind is so much more open now to all the possibilities that life has to offer than when I entered into this stage. As I stated in my video where I talked about the physical side of morbid obesity, it was still difficult. It was very hard to continue to lose weight in the winter. For example, it was very difficult. I got sick very often. Towards the end, I started losing my hair. My hair started falling out. And I was dealing with body dysmorphic episodes in the mirror this month. And I had to kind of face that. If I were to think of all the different triggers I faced, I would say, some romantic triggers. I faced financial triggers. So there was a time when I was worried that my car was not going to work anymore. That would have been a huge trigger. I dealt with social triggers. So things like going to a wedding where friends from high school and in some cases people that I'm not on the best terms with are going, right? Like these kind of things that makes you think, oh, how do I look? Flying on a plane, that was a huge trigger for me as well. Just so many situations where I think a normal person that doesn't have these scars, they just go through it and it's not a big deal at all. For somebody that has this past and the legacy of it, I found myself no longer solely rejecting the disorder or rejecting the behavior, but rejecting the mental backdrop for them, for it. Letting go of obsessing over my body or my diet or these kinds of things or food. Those are really the three obsessions of the issue. And no matter what happened during this time, I wouldn't allow myself to obsess over those things because I knew that that would be a path towards relapse if I were to continue to do that. And as I say on my channel and in general, I'm done with this issue. It's over. Beyond, it's physically over, and I think getting out of morbid obesity, it's mentally over because now I've already dealt with all these things in various ways. And the next time I get on a plane, it's not going to be that scary, for example. It's not going to be as hard to do certain things because I've done them. So I think no matter what, it is so important to continue living your life, because you have to face these things as you're losing the weight. Because if you were to just kind of hide away, I think if you were to hide away and then experience everything at once, I think it would be incredibly difficult to not relapse if you have that past. And so I implore you to keep learning and growing and keep getting triggered throughout the process, because you get stronger, you develop deeper coping mechanisms and other ways of handling things. And it may not always look pretty. It may not always be what people say you should look like, or what people say you should be doing, or how you should be feeling. A lot of those things don't really matter. What matters is just that you're not doing that coping mechanism, and you're not doing anything that's truly harming you or other people. And that's what's important. I probably did so many freaking tarot readings over my anxieties during this time. Maybe it was kind of weird and honestly kind of gay to do that, but it was a way for me to process my anxiety about different triggers that maybe would be considered unorthodox or weird or obsessive, but it helped me. There are other things I did. I really relied on friends so much. I am so glad that I was out of super morbid obesity, because it really helped me to develop closer friendships with people even during weight loss, and to stabilize and not be so volatile and stuff with different friendships and relationships in my life. And it's just been so beautiful and wonderful to be able to have people to talk to or call and talk to, and bitch about these anxieties that I've had. It was really difficult at times, like extremely difficult for me to handle the anxiety, because it doesn't necessarily go away. And that, again, this is why I was fat, right? So I had to learn to just be more flexible, be less rigid, and allow things to change, and allow myself to adjust to my present circumstances over and over and over again. And it got easier and easier. And certain things you just don't entertain, or you just don't go there. You have to develop a mental discipline. And it can be challenging, but it can work. Like when I was starting to have those episodes of dysmorphia in the mirror, or really hating the way that I looked in certain things, I didn't allow myself to fixate on that. And I made sure that I thought about something else, because it's important to not make that a central thing in your life. But so much of this time was understanding that I'm not in control of a lot of things in my life. There's a lot of things I'm not in control over, but there are things I am in control over, and that's okay. I think when we have this past, we struggle. We struggle with all or nothing thinking. We struggle with, I have to have complete control over a situation, or I have to be completely out of control of a situation. And the fact is, it's usually never like that. There's usually always an interaction between you and the situation. And that was extremely important for me to understand. There are things that I can't help. There are things that I can help. And there are ways that I can adjust and be more dynamic in changing circumstances over time. And that took a lot of mental energy to develop those skills that honestly were left underdeveloped due to relying on a toxic coping mechanism for much of my life. And it was a different phase than when I was super morbidly obese, where I was only focused on the physical. I had to be completely focused on physicality because it was so difficult on a physical level. All this mental work happened in this phase. So what I will say upon exiting it is that I'm deeply relieved. I'm extremely grateful to be here. I'm extremely grateful for all the support I have, for everything that helped me to get past these triggers. And I'm thankful for the triggers themselves because I know I'm never going back. I know it. Deep, deep down, I know it. Because if I was, I would have. I'm telling you that much. So I think going into obesity, going into this next phase, I really want to develop my confidence again. I think my framework, everything has shifted so drastically that it's difficult for me to feel like I'm standing on stable ground. And so I think going into obesity, I really want to find my confidence again, to find these different aspects that are kind of gone because I've changed so much. And I think I'm going to start focusing on a little bit more superficial things like style or things like that were not that important before, because I kind of want to. It's like it's being beyond the point of finding yourself post deep illness. It's more so about expressing myself. And I think that that's what I want to focus on in obesity. As far as physically, what is going on in obesity, the thing that I've noticed is that really it's the dopamine issues. They're becoming front and center because all the other issues are kind of going away. And so I've branded this time as like my brat phase, bratcity, as they said, because it kind of, to me, it represents a phase of being a bit more adventurous or being more willing to try new things and needing to, and being willing to express myself and find that confidence again, because I need to have more experiences, especially now that I'm healthier. It's like I want to do things. Like I'm going to go to a pumpkin patch with my mom in October, and we're going to go on the hayride and all that stuff. And it's like I need experience because I am a little bit easily bored, if I'm honest. I don't really get depressed as much now. I tend to become more apathetic or bored, bratty, as I would say now. I tend to feel more like sometimes I just feel very wound up and like I want to pace around, and it's kind of like a feeling of hyperactivity a little bit. It's kind of giving, I would say with the low dopamine, it's giving like ADHD symptoms. I'm not saying that that's what I have. I'm just saying I have symptoms of it. Like I am struggling to focus at times. I struggle with hyperactivity. Like I said, like pacing. It's hard for me to rest. I have low dopamine symptoms like muscle spasms and restlessness and nightmares and these kinds of things. So I think within obesity, those issues become front and center because everything else is going away. So it's like, what does that mean? It means I'm not just sitting here sad anymore. I'm not a tortured person anymore. I'm not sad, but I can be understimulated at times, or I can feel like I just want to go wild or something. And I have to be careful because I don't want to like actually go wild, but I have that feeling. And I think it's because I spent so much time being so ill and then being so sad. And it's like, I'm not as ill and I'm not sad. So I want to live. I have such a lust for life and a sort of insatiability at this moment. And I'm going to use it for good, if that makes sense. I'm going to coach myself towards positive things. I don't want to like do horrible stuff or anything whatsoever, or like anything that would sabotage my health progress. Like I don't want to just go out and start drinking or something. Like I'm not going to do that for example. But I might be a little brat and have, you know, some cheeky wine on Halloween, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, I don't think I have to be as strict all the time. And yes, I did say cheeky because of Charlie, but she's rubbing off on me. What can I say? I'm learning, okay? But anyways, I don't think I'm going to be doing any lines. I'll put it to you that way. But I'm going to keep it healthy for sure. And, you know, still be relatively mature. Like, I'm not planning on just going totally wild. But I think I'm going to go wild for me. Does that make sense? I want to, like, take pictures of myself and be creative and go out and explore and do things and live my life freely and stuff. And it's like, I'm just so ready for that. And I try to think of more humorous things. Like, I think getting less depressed finally is such a lift. You know, even though all my stuff isn't perfect, like I said, I'm still not morbid. Ooh, see, I'm so used to saying that. I'm still close to morbid obesity, but I'm not anymore. But it's like, so I still have some health issues, but compared to what I've been through, it is like nothing. And I think that's what sometimes people don't understand. Like, it's all a matter of perspective. So to me, this is like level 1. This is so easy. So it's like, I just want to go after life and live it to the fullest. Like, that's what I want. And so I'm going to do it. And I'm going to focus a lot on self-expression in this time, because I feel like I used to be so expressive and I feel like I lost it when I got so sick. And so I want it back. So, and I used to be fun, okay? I did. So I want to bring that back. I want to find that part of myself again, because I feel like it's underdeveloped or it's kind of dormant, and I'm ready. So anyways, you guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting me through this journey. I appreciate you guys so much. You don't even know. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. Peace.